is the minority leader in the Senate also, and he's a senior counsel. Thank you very much for coming to our studio this evening.
Glad to be here.
It's been a while since we last spoke.
Yeah.
Let's begin the conversation with playing a video because you are known to be a great debater, and of course, let's begin from the Senate.
That Parliament shall carry out its function in accordance with the Constitution. I am very happy with Mr. Sang. I'll forever call you my learned friend, not to your neighbor who is next to you, because you need to be candid. When Parliament is dealing with something which is clearly unconstitutional, we should say so. We should not let it pass. But if it passes, even the courts are going to say, was Welcome there, was Sang there, was Kilonzo there, was the Attorney General Emeritus, was he there? Was the Speaker there, who is a legal student?
And as Kenyans will say, the next part of that conversation will shock you. Well, it won't shock you, but we'll play it within these conversations. James Orengo, let's begin from the Senate. I played that video purposefully. I have always wanted, Senator, to know what exactly is in the BBI amendment for the Senate.
Well, there are various amendments. You will find out that the executive is going to be in the National Assembly.
Yes.
So questions of accountability, the focus is going to shift to the Senate. And for that purpose, you'll find that a lot of the vetting process, a lot of the appointments to constitutional offices
yes.
are going to take place in the Senate. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an enhanced role. If you look at the activities of the Congress in the United States, a lot of time is spent not only on oversight, but in vetting, federal appointees. And I think Senate
coming to the Senate.
Is coming to the Senate.
But what's the difference between what you're saying and what already exists in Article 96(1) and 2? What is the difference?
The difference is that, the functions that are set out in Article 96 are very different from these functions. Those functions you'll find they are specifically stated in specific articles and provisions of the Constitution that in the appointment of, let's say, the Chief Justice, it is the National Assembly or the Senate which will carry out, the vetting process. So in regard to the BBI, a lot of that activity and functions have been taken to the Senate. So
it's even been more specific, and you're saying the Senate will have an enhanced role. But the reason why I'm asking is because I thought the Senate will use this opportunity to cement their position as the upper house.
Well, the question of upper house or lower house, that is old order. I mean, if you went to France, they've got a very strong Senate, but they never call themselves the upper house. I think this is a British tradition. In the US, there's not really an upper house and a lower house. The two chambers are coordinated in terms of functions. And even now, for purposes of legislation and oversight, our powers are coordinate. There's not two parliaments, there's only one parliament. And where parliament has specific functions delegated to the Senate, the Constitution will say so.
But there's been a back and forth. I still maintain that there's been a back and forth about the upper house. And at one time it pitted you against the National Assembly. There's a huge outcry about it. I mean, it can't be that right now when you have the opportunity as the Senate to cement this and distinguish it, because I'm sure you mentioned the countries that there's no distinction, but that distinction will still work.
No, but let me tell you, in the UK, the House of Lords traditionally was the upper house. But if you look in terms of powers, it's got very minimal legislative powers. If you go to, let's say, some of these legislative bodies outside Europe, you'll find that distinction really, it doesn't really matter in modern democracies.
It doesn't matter. I know you've said that. But
and remember, when we had the Senate, at the independence, the House of Representatives was known as the lower house, and the Senate was known as the upper house. There was that distinction. But when it came to powers, the Senate in 1963 did not have the powers that we have at the moment.
Including impeaching the president.
Including.
My interest still is, there has been a hullabaloo about the Senate being at the upper house. Suddenly, it's not there.
Well, I've given one of the functions which have been transferred from the National Assembly to the Senate. And the fact that at the end of the day, the only institution that can remove a president who is elected directly by the people, that power does not rest with the National Assembly. It rests with the Senate.
Okay.
There was a famous senator in the United States who talked about why those powers went to the Senate and not the House of Representatives. Okay. And I think that is an important distinction.
This school of thought that the senators, James Orengo being among them, who would have wanted this to be entrenched in the Constitution, suddenly became reluctant because most of these senators are thinking of transitioning to the counties to be the chief executive of the counties. And they don't want to strengthen the Senate because then they'll have to face the Senate at some point. That's school of thought.
Well, I don't think that happened. If you remember, during the BBI process, the Senate as an institution went to give its views. I remember Senator Murkomen and myself addressed the BBI initiative team on what we thought should be done about the Senate to enhance its powers and functions. And I don't think there's a lot that was left out, except the fact that we said if the executive was in the National Assembly, then a lot of oversight, because some of the oversight is still remaining with the National Assembly.
Yes.
Because oversight is distinct from legislative powers. We thought that a lot of that would come to the Senate, or exclusively to the Senate. But that did not take place.
So this has nothing to do with the future, the thoughts of transitioning? It has nothing to do with that? No, you're not protecting your turf?
No, we're not protecting our turf.
All right, it's a few minutes to the top of the hour, and at this juncture, if you're watching us on KTN Home, you'd like to switch to KTN News because this conversation continues after these seconds of a break. All right, I'm still in the Senate, and now my interest is you sit as the minority leader, and you got this seat after the removal of Moses Wetangula, and perhaps it was an agreement within NASA that he would occupy that seat. But we have seen a lot of other people who have been removed subsequently. We've seen Malala just the other day who left. My interest now is the reasons why they had to leave, because Malala sat right here on this show about a fortnight ago, and instead of blaming ODM, he blamed you for his removal.
No, I mean, if you told me that I was going to be asked that question, we have a written agreement.
With the coalition partners?
Not with the coalition partner.
Okay.
A written letter from Senator Malala, and you know he is from a party with only 3 senators in the Senate.
Okay.
One of them is a member of the Parliamentary Service Commission, Senator Haniri, and that is courtesy of the major minority party, which is the ODM. The other senator who is elected was Senator Malala. At that time, before he was appointed to that position, he did not hold any position in the leadership. But we came to an agreement because in ODM, as the major party, with with nearly 20 senators, had only 2 offices, excluding the Parliamentary Service Commission. So Malala agreed that he was going to serve for 1 year.
In writing? In
writing. And if you want me to produce that letter...
No, we take you for your word.
Yes. And we allowed him to
serve for that period.
For 2 years.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that was just posturing and his politics. And that's why when he decided to go, he went not with a bang, but with a whimper, as it were.
So why then would he blame you and yet he wrote a letter?
Well, you know, politics people always...
They have to take...
Yeah, they have to look for somebody to blame.
Okay.
Yeah, but...
he says it's because of Matungu by-election.
No.
Because they whipped ODM in Matungu.
No. Matungu, first of all, Matungu, the sitting member at that time, who was elected in 2017, was an ANC member of parliament. So it was not like if ODM was fighting for its seat. But if the petition which has been filed in Kakamega now succeeds, and we have a proper election, I can tell you, ODM will win that.
But what are the contentions? I'd like to go back to Malaba. What are the contentions, maybe without the sub judice, what are the contentions? What is the major contention of ODM in that petition? The violence, the bribery? What is the reason?
You have mentioned it.
Bribery and just electoral offenses. Violence,
bribery, and even interfering with the electoral process in terms of not allowing IBC officers to do their work properly.
So those are the contentions.
Yes.
Let's go back to Malala and Moses Wetangula. What was the main reason for Moses Wetangula? Malala wrote a letter, but Moses Wetangula?
Moses Wetangula he was the majority leader.
Minority.
Minority leader, but he was only one senator.
In the Senate?
In the Senate.
But
so when we sat as, as ODM, we said, a lot of issues that are discussed in the Senate and we discuss in the ODM Senate parliamentary group. He was not a member.
Okay, you couldn't attend?
Yeah, so that was extremely difficult. And, there are normally a lot of difficulties with a pre-election pact between political parties because it does not result from the outcome of an election. Okay. Normally, in a parliamentary system, the pacts are made after the elections, when you know the outcome.
But for you to try and win an election, you go for it before election.
We go for it before election,
yes.
But the problem was that even for the seats, like in Kakamega and in Bungoma, we had own candidates, parliamentary, senatorial.
True. Okay, but he got this seat courtesy of the fact that he was a NASA principal. And he had to get something?
No, not necessarily. We had said that if he won the election, for example, he was going to be a deputy prime minister.
Okay.
That is what was...
That was in the pre-pact?
That was in the pre-pact.
Okay.
That he was going to be a deputy prime minister.
But there was no position for that during that election. How would he have been a deputy prime minister? There was no position.
No, we said... for purposes functionally, because we looked at the Constitution and we said functionally at that time, the description of a minister or a chief minister, that was not a matter for the Constitution.
Okay.
You could
so it would have happened.
You could appoint a minister.
Yes.
And even call that minister chief minister.
Not a prime minister, because that would totally mean something else.
Well, even a prime minister, because there was no prohibition.
So he would be the minister that would be ahead of all other ministers.
You remember in Zimbabwe, when they had a pact between Mugabe
and the late
Mkomo, who was a very senior politician.
Yes.
When it happened that it was Mugabe who won the election. And Mkomo was the most senior politician.
They designated
him as chief minister and created a bunch of ministries to be under him.
I am not convinced that, with top lawyers in ODM, such as you, and Wetangula is also a top lawyer, for him to have swallowed that. But away from Wetangula, I'm wondering, because from what we see is Wetangula left because he was minority. Malala, we just learned that he left because he wrote a letter and the pre-pact was 1 year, he was given 2 years.
Yes.
And in law, he should have gone ahead because you led him to believe that he could have gone for another 1 year as ODM.
No, he always knew.
He always knew after the second year he
he always knew.
My surprise now comes to when we're dealing with Mutula Kilonzo Jr. because he's also a minority in the Senate, and he has been left because now questions are, is ODM going for Mutula Kilonzo Jr. next?
Not at all. Mutula, as a debater and a senator, we think of him as a very great asset. And we have no problems about him because, whenever we're in the Senate, when it comes to whipping senators, including ODM senators, is very effective in the committee meetings, including the finance where he serves, including the legal committee, including the House Business Committee. You would find he would be there all the time.
In spite of not being with the ODM, which is the majority?
Yes.
He will represent,
Yeah,
okay.
Yes.
All right, that's done. Let's talk about now your party, that's ODM party. We've just run a story. There was conflicting information on the first, Raila's candidature. Why would Raila's candidature be such a big issue to an extent that ODM will test the waters, because we believe they were testing the waters with the first statement just to cancel it and saying it was an April Fool's Day prank or something?
No. You know, it's really a storm in a teacup.
It can be where Raila
it is a storm in a teacup. You know, when are the elections due?
2022.
2022, August.
Yes.
And now we are in the month of April, 2021.
About 16 months ago.
We got 16 months ago.
Yes.
Now, what ODM was trying to do at the beginning, and a lot of things have come in which have interfered with the ODM program. We wanted to carry out recruitment and membership drive.
At the same time?
Well, yeah, at the same time. And thirdly, to identify our candidates well before the elections, including the presidential elections. We wanted to make sure that the chaos and disruption that happens just before the elections, you know, people go to the tribunals, they go to the High Court, they even go to the Court of Appeal, and in some cases, some people have gone up to the Supreme Court. We wanted this process to take place in good time. And by our timetable, we would have done with the BBI and the referendum. Now, you remember Raila Odinga has said something very consistently, that he does not want to talk about 2022.
Okay.
He wants the process of having this constitutional review reach its logical conclusion. Because if now he enters into the theater of fighting for the candidature for a 2022 election,
this will be lost somewhere.
then you know, the message about this constitutional review would be lost completely.
And is that not the reason why this information was retracted? Because it was sort of embarrassing to Raila Odinga, who's maintained that he's not going to talk about 2022. So because he was embarrassed, ODM had to change that.
No, I think it's how the newspapers handled it. You know, for example, there was another...
But we don't send statements, Senator.
There was another prank in the newspaper, which it was not a newspaper, about President Obama coming here, you know, to mourn his grandmother this week. Now, that was not even from the Obama family. It came from the media. And it was a serious thing to say about that family. If somebody else would have said it, it would have caused a lot of uproar in the media.
I think...
And for that matter, I think the media should take it for what it is.
I think we've spotted a thief, and you're telling us that is the thief.
No.
You're diverting our attention.
No.
This is a problem of ODM.
No. If you spot a thief...
And you tell us the other one is the thief.
We have seen the thief, we'll be totally in agreement.
But we haven't seen him. Okay. Raila Odinga, tonight we are learning that Junet Mohammed, the elections chairperson, says that NEC will meet and consider extending so that Raila Odinga could be accommodated. This is by design.
It is not really by design, because if you look at the powers of the National Elections Board, which handles the elections, including receiving applications for nomination as candidates in any seat, often they sometimes delegate those powers to the national executive. And if it is a matter which we think should go to the larger, you know, the conference or the convention, it will go there. Yeah. So the National Elections Board with the national executive will have to speak to each other on how to handle the matter. But
why is it necessary? We have two candidates already, Senator. Why must we now change and ask the NEC to meet? And yet we have people who beat the deadline, Ali Hassan Joho, and we have Oparanya. Why must we extend it to accommodate Raila Odinga?
Now, I want you to show me anything in the regulations within the constitution of ODM, where it says that once an election period for invitation or nomination papers closes,
you cannot open.
You cannot open, or you cannot reconsider it. Then I know in the statutory regulations and the Elections Act and in the Constitution, those periods are set out. And we do all this to comply with the statutory enactments, which include the Elections Act and the Constitution.
That is not my worry. My worry is we have two candidates and we have to extend it because a third candidate is missing. Why don't we just end it? Why don't we just stop it? Do you want to see Raila Odinga on the ballot as Senator James Orengo?
We can't force Raila Odinga.
But would you want to see him?
Me as a person, I've said consistently that I would like him to run. But that is a decision he has to make. Yeah.
All right, let's talk more about Raila Odinga. The other day we saw him out. He was still looking a little frail with President Uhuru Kenyatta. The activities preceding that, I saw you at a press conference with Raila Odinga, and in fact, I think 2 meetings preceding him walking his walkabout a day out with President Uhuru Kenyatta. My interest is the fact that this walk came about at the time there was a lot of noise. Today is the 7th. On the 7th of last month, that is March, you stood and spoke about civil servants who were undermining the process of the BBI and told them to stay away, right? And then we've seen a lot of talk also around the handshake breaking, and then suddenly we hear talks again about Raila Odinga possibly teaming with William Ruto. And then President Uhuru Kenyatta, we see him sitting at State House with the coastal regional leaders. And when he leaves State House, the message that Raila Odinga took to the coast is that we don't want regional parties. Then straight up, we have a governor talking about regional parties still. So it gives the impression that President Uhuru Kenyatta supports the regional parties. And then we hear the talk of Raila and Ruto. Then suddenly, boom, you see them walking together.
I've listened to, let's say, for example, Kingi, Governor Kingi, and he made his position quite clear that the party that they were contemplating in forming in the coast was a regional party in the sense that it will have a base. Like a lot of political parties have bases in some parts of the country. But they did not want to have a party which is purely confined to a particular region, which will go against the Constitution. But I think at the moment there's a lot of conversations which are going on. And if you care to follow what is happening in the political environment at the moment, I think we're in a period in which people are trying to find their level. And a lot of things that we have said, for example, the examples that we have given, they don't amount to a crisis. It's normal political discussion within political parties or between partners. And that happened with us when we were in the Grand Coalition, ODM and PNU. There were a lot of times when we had to go to the bush in Savo to try and talk about our differences.
Away from the media.
Yeah, but when we came out, there was never really a big problem that could not be resolved.
So you believe this is one of them?
Sometimes you read into things that are neither here or there.
It's not possible, Senator, yet you politicians entertain us with these things.
No, not in terms of bringing conflict. You know, how many times would I go to court and tell a magistrate or a judge that this is wrong? It doesn't mean that the entire process is wrong.
So what you're saying is these things can be resolved and eventually we'll see one voice?
I think we are on a journey that we are not, we have reached a level where we can't look back.
I want to show you these alliances. Let's begin with the alliance that we hear is formed between Raila Odinga, then we have Governor Kivuta Kibwana. We have those graphics now. Let's see. But basically, there are alliances that we have always seen play out in the media. Now, Raila Odinga has left the traditional allies that he's worked with for the last 2 elections. Now we see the formation around Mamangilu, who he worked with previously, Governor Kibwana, Kingi, Kuti. I saw you there, Muhisa Kitui. And then we look on the other side, we have the One Kenya Alliance. the traditional partners of Raila Odinga have also gone on the other side. We see Musalia Mudavadi, Moses Wetangula, Gideon Moi, and the likes. And then there is William Ruto, who is now with the Hustlers. Now, let's bring that graphic up, the first alliance that we see. That's the alliance of Raila Odinga. There's also a few people that we have seen in that alliance. Then we have, and just to note, Charity Ngilu has worked with Raila Odinga before. And we have the second alliance, that one of One Kenya Alliance. Yeah, that's One Kenya, Gideon Moi, Moses Wetangula, Kalonzo Musyoka, and Musalia Mudavadi. And then we have also the one with Deputy President, together with all the hustlers of Kenya. My question is, for ODM, why is Raila moving away? Is it that this marriage is completely broken and he can never work again with these people, or because he never delivered the promise? Because one of the things they said, the first meeting ever is endorsement. It's time for Raila to step out, and it's our time, and we also need endorsement.
You know, after the newspapers and the media talking about these alliances and One Kenya Alliance, as if it was a strategy to keep Raila out, as it were.
But that's what they say.
No, but 2 days ago, what did Mudavadi say? That he's ready to work with
Raila
Odinga.
Yes.
Now, these are the alliance that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. You know, would you know that Mr. Kuti from Isiolo, I haven't met him for the last 6-7 months. And yet there was a report in the Standard that we met at some hotel yesterday. That meeting to me is totally fictional.
Okay.
I don't know about it. But constantly, people in that group that you have mentioned, people like Oparanya,
yes,
we keep on meeting. Mama Ngilu, we chat, and Raila Odinga talks with her. They were at State House just the other day, okay, in the company of Mudavadi, Wetangula, and others. Was that an alliance? I think on the part of Raila Amolo Odinga, sometimes he meets with some of his colleagues that we were together in the trenches, like when we met with Mukisa Kitui and Kivuta Kibwana. It was a meeting in which we were just discussing our past, okay, and the status of the country generally.
Okay. Does ODM have a plan post Raila Odinga?
No. We are not. We are not gotten into that.
You're not talking about that.
We are not talking to that. And you know, ODM has got institutions and organs, and so long as those institutions and organs are in place and they function, I don't think planning for a post Raila Odinga situation is necessary, mm-hmm, so long as the party itself, within its rules and within the constitution, it is a way of dealing with that particular
issue. If Raila Odinga decides not to run eventually, does ODM have a plan?
Well, that is a rhetorical question. I think it's a question that is very difficult to answer because he has not said totally that he's not going to run. If he doesn't run, as you say, we've got 2 candidates, okay, and we may have others.
Okay, yes, at that time when Raila Odinga is not running. I have a few minutes on the clock, and I'd like to ask, is reggae still on?
Reggae is on. And if you want to know about it, watch what is going to happen in the parliament in the next few days. We're going to deal with the Constitutional Kenya Amendment Bill, mm-hmm, and after it goes through parliament, then it will go to the subsequent stages and end up in a referendum.
Okay. We've had that referendum, post-referendum. There could be an extension of the election date. I don't know how that's going to happen in the Constitution, but anything is possible. Do you see a situation that we're not having an election in 2022 and we push it to 2024 or 2026? And how would that happen?
I would not rule it out, but I think it'd be highly, controversial. But it happened before. You remember the elections that we were supposed to have in December 2012. Those elections were pushed to March 2013. 13. And the Attorney General then, Professor Gidu Muigai, had to go to the Supreme Court for an advisory on how to deal with the quagmire we got ourselves in. But I believe in the name of constitutionalism, because that's a principle of our Constitution, it will be important to keep within the time frames as spelled out in the Constitution. Okay. But the Constitution itself talks about emergencies if you're in a state of war, but I don't think you can extend the life of Parliament or the presidency just anyhowly. Okay. I think that would be highly controversial and
among politicians or citizens.
I mean, controversial among politicians and citizens.
I think politicians will enjoy it.
And then it would be a very bad precedent. You know, for example, I want to tell you, before Kibaki went out, there were actually discussions that the life of Parliament should be extended and Kibaki should go for 1 year. Kibaki was the first to say no, he will not do that. And within, you know, this inner sanctum of government at that time, it was very unpopular amongst the politicians that we cannot do a Putin, even at that time. Yeah. So I think, although we don't like politicians a lot, but a lot of the times they can make the right decisions.
Okay. As I let you go, I hope I'll see you next time, because that's a conversation I really want to have with you, on the extension possibility that we can even contemplate extending the life of Parliament. You have a rich legacy in politics. You have been senator, you've been member of Parliament to Kenya, you were elected and opposed and all those things. Are you thinking of transitioning probably from the Senate to probably governorship?
I think that is a decision I'm going to make openly at an appropriate time.
So right now?
Right now, I want to concentrate on being a senator and serve in the positions that I have in the Senate.
The reason I'm asking is because you spoke to me about wanting to see Raila Odinga on the ballot again, and you've had presidential, I think you ran on SDP, you had presidential ambitions. Perhaps you're thinking of anything greater than that? I also asked you about a plan post Raila Odinga, which you cannot talk about.
No, I think let us cross those bridges when they come.
Okay. One supplementary question on President Hassan Suluhu. She's the first in East Africa. She got to that place without planning or thinking or even campaigning, just that she deputized the late president, and now she's president. You looked at the moves she's been making around. What comes to your mind?
I think I'm very happy about what she's doing. And if you look at the debate we had in the Senate, I urged her, you know, to go back to opening Tanzania as a democratic state. I think Magufuli did a lot. Infrastructure, but I think our democracy helps citizens to enjoy, infrastructure and whatever a state may put in place. Now she has opened up media space. She's rethinking COVID.
Yes.
And a lot of appointments she has made, I think there's been some thought process. And I hope that she goes on that trajectory. And if she can have a successful run for this balance of the tenure that she has succeeded, I think it will be inspiring.
For a lot of women.
For a lot of women and a lot of countries.
Yes.
By the way, because I think in the region, women actually qualify to rise to the positions of heads of state and prime minister where applicable. In Ethiopia, they have a president, but she's more ceremonial than executive. So between the Sahara and the Limpopo, I think we are making history. I wish it had happened in Kenya. Rather than
Mama Ngilu really wants to be president, and she promised a conversation with me on that. And as I let you go just in 1 minute, Kenyans will not forgive me without asking you this. You stand on public debt and the fact that you're even asking for that.
You know, 2 years ago, I talked about the issue of debt and debt ceiling. There's nothing wrong with debt, but it must be structured. It must not be costly. Because sometimes you may take debt for things like infrastructure, which If you do them now, they are cheaper. Biden is also trying to do something big about infrastructure in the United States, and that requires a lot of money. But if it is not well managed, if it puts people in a sense where they think, their pockets are empty, and they see all this brick and mortar, they will not appreciate it. They will not value it. Okay. And I think in Kenya, and I'm saying this looking straight at the camera, that people are in a lot of pain in this country. And if we have to take a debt, we need to examine them, we need to audit them, and we need to determine whether we're getting value for money.
Senator James Orengo, thank you very much for coming to our studio tonight.
Thank you.
Asante sana. When we come back, we have Dr. Barak Muluka. We'll be speaking to him, the developments, that dead story, we're still speaking about it, plus a lot of other issues. Stay with us. And Joshua Kipto, the Nandi speaker, is also joining us via Zoom shortly. Stay with us. News Hour is back in a moment.